Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of Artsy Raven, and today we have Dr. Marleen S. Barr as our special guest. Dr. Marleen S. Barr is known for her pioneering work in feminist science fiction criticism. She has won the Science Fiction Research Association Award for lifetime contributions to science fiction scholarship. Barr is the author of Alien to Femininity, Speculative Fiction and Feminist Theory, Lost in Space, Probing Feminist Science Fiction and Beyond, Feminist Fabulations, Space, Postmodern Fiction, and Genre Fission, a new discourse practice for cultural studies. Barr has edited many critical anthologies and co-edited the science fiction issue of PMLA. She is the author of novels Oy Pioneer and Oy Feminist Planets, a Fake Memoir. Her When Trump Changed, the Feminist Science Fiction Justice League Quashes the Orange Outrage Pussy Grabber is the first single-author Trump short story collection. So welcome, Marleen.
Thank you very much. Those titles are really good.
Yeah.
I,
So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you started writing. Like, you're an academic by trade, so how did you get into creative writing?
well, I'm a science fiction scholar, which is in my generation a very weird thing to be, because the people who were older than me thought science fiction was garbage and crap. And they also thought that feminist science fiction was garbage and crap. It was like a double whammy. To be a science fiction scholar was horrible. To be a feminist science fiction scholar was beyond the pale. And I just knew that that's what I was. And if they didn't like it, that was too bad. So to be an academic, you must write. It's more important than teaching. It's the most important thing. And if you don't write, you lose your job. And I had a wonderful dissertation director, Norman N. Holland. He did literature and psychology and reader response criticism. And the nugget of what he said to me was write in my own voice. So I started writing criticism in my own voice, but literary criticism is not, the average person can't read it. And it's so arcane that I've been publishing it for many years, and sometimes I Google myself on the internet and I come up with an article on feminist science fiction and I go, oh, what a good article. And then I see, oh, I wrote that. And then I read it and I go, oh, I'm not sure that I understand what I wrote all these years ago. So I started writing as I write, and it came out sort of a little bit like fiction. And I was talking to my dissertation director, Norm, and I said, well, Norm, literary criticism should be funny and entertaining, and it shouldn't be that people are estranged from it and they can't read it. And he goes, Marleen, that's a very good idea, but you're the only person I know who could write humorous literary criticism. So it can't be a cottage industry because you're the only one who can do it. So the answer to your question is my fiction, my criticism had some fiction in it. And then in around 2002, I said to a literary critic, I want to write a novel. And he's Yugoslavian, and in his accent said, Marleen, do not tell me that you want that you should write a novel. Shut up and write the goddamn novel. So I said, okay, I'll shut up and write the goddamn novel. So I wrote the goddamn novel, which was called Oy Pioneer, and it was about how my Jewish mother was telling me to get married. and I published it, and people liked it, and then I just started writing fiction. So the answer is I had to write, so I just started writing this, and it's fun.
Now, has it been hard to get things published?
Yes, it took me, like, with literary criticism, at this point, I could publish any literary criticism that I want to. But with fiction, it's a different ball game, and it's all about making money, and it's very, 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 it's very, very, very hard. And it took me like years to publish the first novel. I published it with the University of Wisconsin Press, which is a good press, but it's an academic press. So, and I just lucked out. I was at the Modern Language Association, and it was like the last day at the last hour, and I just took all my strength and I walked up to this editor and I said, my novel is about such and such. Would you be interested in this? And he goes, okay, let me see it. And he took it.
Oh, very good. Yeah, someone was telling me that sometimes it has to do with luck.
It was luck. It's just that it's just that this editor happened to like it.
Yeah, it's very subjective. Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
And I'm very tenacious. You have to be tenacious. So I just used my tenacity and I just kept plugging away until someone took it.
Now, are you still teaching right now?
I retired.
Retired?
I
Okay.
retired because of COVID.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
wasn't I wasn't going to go in the subway in a classroom. It was ridiculous. It was too unsafe. And because of family members, they had to, I'm retirement age. And if it were not for COVID, I like teaching a lot. I would still be teaching, but it was kind of like enough. I couldn't go in the subway and teaching with a face mask. It was untenable. So here I am, I'm retired.
So what was teaching like? Like what sort of things were you teaching?
I taught science fiction and I taught freshman composition. I love teaching. I love to perform. I would get up and perform and meet new kids. And I just loved it. And I'm sorry that I'm retired. Like all my friends who are retired, they're happy to be retired. I'm not happy to be retired.
So, what are some of the things you're teaching like what are some advice that you could give to your students like in class for writing?
The only to students, to writers, to anybody, the only way to write is to write. And it's like the science fiction critic with the Serbian accent said to me, shut up and write the goddamn novel. You have to shut up and write the goddamn novel. And it's a lonely thing and no one is going to do it for you. And you just have to do it. But I love writing. So if I can't write, I get very upset.
Now, over the years, have you seen more acceptance of the feminist science fiction at all?
Oh, there's a whole, I am the person who founded the field of feminist science fiction, but there's a whole new group of women who came after me, and it's going it's going strong. It's perfectly accepted. I'm not an outlier anymore. And if you like, it was hard to be the pioneer, like the icebreaker and the person who broke through. But if you want to be a feminist science fiction scholar, you have to now quote me. So,
Now,
and
what makes feminist science fiction different from science fiction?
it's very simply about women's issues, and it exaggerates conditions in terms of cognitive estrangement so that you could see the reality. It makes things worse.
Now, in the beginning, though, were you just a science fiction critic and became like how did it become feminist science fiction?
Well, there, my coming of age as a scholar coincided with the first. I was a graduate student in the 70s, and that's when people like Joanna Russ and Ursula Le Guin and Susie McKee Charnas started writing. So I was in my little graduate student hovel reading Ursula Le Guin, and I had a famous scholar, Leslie Fiedler, who was, I guess it's right to call him, one of the most famous literary scholars of the second half of the 20th century, and so too for Norman Holland. And I went to Buffalo, SUNY Buffalo, for my PhD. It was very informal, and I braved the snowstorm. And I went to the English department. I said, Leslie, Norm, look at this. Look at Ursula Le Guin. She's great. You should read Ursula Le Guin. And I guess I was a smart little graduate student, and they believed me. And the first critical anthology about women in science fiction that I did, it was called Future Females. And I got Norman Holland to publish in it. And he wrote an essay called UK Le Guin. And he did a reader response critical analysis of Le Guin, which meant that he was reading a text by Le Guin in terms of himself. So right at the get-go, I got these big scholars to believe me and write about it. And so this was again luck that these women started writing when I was a graduate student, and I used to go on my hands and knees in bookstores and try to find the women writers, because it was totally untrod ground. And I was the first women science fiction scholar, so it was me and all the guys, and they were all very nice to me because I was like the woman of their tribe, and men protect the women of their tribe. So I had all these men to like me and protect me. So so that was fun. And I didn't get married till I was like 48. So that was also fun. So I wrote about this in Oy Pioneer. So I had a very good time being a woman science fiction scholar. It was great. Still is.
Now, to this day, you're like, are you still continuing to write feminist science fiction, or do you want to branch out to other things?
In scholarly writing, or
I guess either or. I mean,
well, in scholarly writing, I'm still continuing to do the science fiction criticism, because that's my field. I'm not going to write about iambic pentameter in Renaissance literature. This is not or one of my best friends, when I met her as a young assistant professor, she was a Dryden critic, and I introduced her to feminism, and she said, "Oh, you're right." And she became a major feminist theorist. So there's nothing else for me to write about. So yes, I'm still writing. I'm still writing feminist science fiction criticism, and my Future Females anthology, there was like 3 of them, and I said, well, I have a brand, I may as well do some more. So I'm sort of doing Jewish future females, and another one, Future Females with Clothes. So I'm still having a good time publishing away. What else will I do? It's fun.
and now we've worked on more than one project about Mr. Trump there. So why are you so fascinated with former President Trump?
Former, please, oh, please. It's it's because I'm from Forest Hills, Queens, and I very much identify with being from Queens. I'm proud to be a New Yorker, but I'm not. I live in Manhattan now, but I'm not a native Manhattan person. I'm from Queens. I have a Queens accent. So the only thing that is the same between me and Trump is that my voice pattern is just like his. He came from Jamaica Estates. I'm from Forest Hills. I could see Jamaica Estates from my house. I lived in a very tall building, and if I looked over Flushing Meadow Park from my bedroom window, there was Jamaica Estates. And I was appalled by him. I could not believe, like presidents come from, I don't know, like Nebraska or something. Presidents don't come from down Queens Boulevard. It was ridiculous. He went to the Kew Forest School on the Forest Hills Kew Gardens border. I knew people who went there. It is ridiculous that someone as heinous as him could come from where I come from. Like you want to be proud of people who come from where you come from. And I know I'm not the only person from Queens, but like there are other ones. But I guess that I'm the only one who can take what he did and make it worse in terms of science fiction. And in my Trump writing, I took all the science fiction tropes I know, threw them at him, and made him worse. And the answer to why was I so obsessed with writing about Trump, there was nothing that I could do about him. There's nothing that anybody can do about him. As we speak, it's what, 6:22. He's still here. Like, I don't wish him harm. I just don't want to hear. I don't want to see him, and I don't want to hear him. So this was the only thing that I could do. And I've been told in my stories, I was very careful not to do him harm because he's a person, and he has a family. I don't wish that on him. But I did everything that I could to get rid of him. The aliens imprison him. He turns into an egg and falls down the wall like Humpty Dumpty. He gets sent to the Phantom Zone. Anything that, I'm very imaginative, anything that I could think of, I did to him. And I felt the sense of, like, science fiction is supposed to be a power fantasy for young men. I felt such a power fantasy that I could take my science fiction knowledge and zap him with it. And also, like I was writing, like, this is more serious, but I love Mel Brooks, and I love the producers, and I love, like, Springtime for Hitler. And Mel Brooks said that Mel Brooks was a World War II, was a soldier in World War II, and he saw the concentration camps. And he said that the only thing that he could do against Hitler was ridicule him, that ridicule was a power. And what I was doing to Trump, like I'm not as talented as Mel Brooks by any means, but I took whatever talent I have and I used it to ridicule Trump. So the answer is, why did you do this, Marleen? Because I didn't know what else to do. I wanted to ridicule him, and it made me happy to fantasize about getting rid of him.
Okay. And that you've done a great job.
I did the best I can.
Oh gosh. Now, if someone comes, yeah, okay, I guess we sort of answered the question. If someone comes to you for writing advice, you would say just write the damn book.
Right, right,
Now,
write
are
the damn
you
book. That's the only thing to do.
are you working on any new projects? Any new
Um,
books coming up
I'm
later?
I'm editing. I think the main thing that I'm doing is I'm editing my Jewish future females anthology.
Ah, okay.
That's what I'm doing now, and I'm writing the proposal for the clothing anthology. So I'm doing academic anthologies, and here and there I'm writing a short story or two.
Now, how do you find it switching from academic writing to creative writing?
I to to I I can sit and write a story from front to back, just like that, like writing a letter. Like I went to the doctor the other day, and I got it there an hour early, and I took out my notebook and I wrote a story, and the doctor said, I know you were here early. I apologize that I couldn't see you. And I said, oh, that's fine. I wrote a short story. And she didn't know me, and she looked at me like I was crazy. I could I could just write very, very easily.
Okay.
But excuse me, what is it that you asked me? I forgot.
Sort of the difference between academic
Oh, the
writing and
difference
creative
between,
writing.
yes, the difference between academic writing and and um and fiction writing. I think that they're two distinct things. And it's sort of like being, I am not bilingual. I'm terrible at language. And I went into that rendition of how I write easily, that I write English perfectly, but I failed. I got my master's degree at Michigan. I failed the University of Michigan MA French test 6 times.
I'm
Six
not good
times.
at languages
And
either.
the proctor was my friend. And then I went from Michigan to Buffalo. Buffalo did not have a language requirement. If Buffalo had a language requirement, I would still be at Buffalo trying to get my PhD. So I know nothing about being bilingual, but it seems to me that it is an example of being bilingual. So I say, well, now I'm writing academically, so I'll write academically, even though it comes out more humorous than most people's academic writing. And then I'm saying, okay, I'm going to do my fiction writing, and I'll go into fiction writing voice. But as you know from editing my Trump anthology, my fiction writing is a little scholarly in that I start out with quotations at the front of the stories, because that's scholarly writing, to write with quotations. I see things in terms of quotations.
Okay, Marlene, you're doing a bit of a reading for us. Can you explain what you're reading and before you start reading and then do it?
Yes, the story is called Trump Needs Ghostbusters, and I like it because it takes place in Queens, and it's about the ghosts of Trump's dead parents and what happens when the narrator engages with the ghosts of Trump's dead parents.
Okay, cool.
Should I begin to read?
Sure.
Okay. Trump Needs Ghostbusters. All the Ghostbusters in Queens were having a field day after word got around that Fred and Marianne McLeod Trump appeared perched on Naugahyde lazy boy recliners floating above their graves in Middle Village's Lutheran All-State Cemetery. Fred was reading the New York Times. Are you angry that I referred to the dead? True, two wrongs don't make a right. But think of how Trump treated the deceased John McCain. Fred Trump was a racist who attended Ku Klux Klan rallies. And as for Mary, well, she had to know what was going on. This is just a story. Get over it. The Trump parents' lounge chair levitation thing happened just as the Operation Varsity Blues college admission cheating scandal was going down. Look, Mary, the Times reports that via a scam called Operation Varsity Blues, wealthy parents paid to have their children gain admission by misrepresenting the students as talented athletes and falsifying their SAT scores, said Fred. We did that for Donald. His grades at Fordham were too terrible for him to get admitted to Penn. And our granddaughter, Mary, just told the world how Trump hired a friend to take the SATs for him. We were ahead of our time, Fred answers it as he leaned back in his recliner. Don't rest on your laurels. That was then and this is now. Mueller is going after Donald. You always financially intervened to help him. What would have happened if you didn't bail him out after his casino failure fiasco? Even though we're dead, we can't leave him in the lurch. Mueller might indict Donald. Our son would go to prison. Fred leaned back further, folded the Times, and considered the problem. Since we're ghosts, we can take supernatural action, Fred said. We can, for example, inveigle ourselves within Mueller's brain and interfere with his ability to author his report. Sounds good. Let's go. Fred and Mary floated down to Washington, walked through the walls of Mueller's house, and appeared over his bed while he slept. We're here. Now what? Asked Mary. I'm a builder. We will build a beautiful invisible wall in Mueller's bedroom. When he wakes up, he will hit his head against it in the exact spot where the brain controls making conclusions. He will then be unable to indict Donald. Mary stared at Mueller's night table. Look, Mueller's report is here. It's over 300 pages. Who would believe that someone would compile so many pages and fail to come to a conclusion? I'll just follow through with the plan and hope for the best, said Fred as he began to build a wall out of the piled invisible Naugahyde lazy boy recliners. Mueller awoke, hit his head according to Fred's plan, and hence was unable to indict Trump. He delivered his report to Attorney General William Barr. No relation. That's not in the story. Barr announced that Mueller had exonerated Trump. I'm totally exonerated. There's no conclusion. Total exoneration, Trump repeatedly proclaimed. That's my boy, said Fred. You're a killer, not a loser. Great lying. Another ghost joined Fred and Mary in Mueller's bedroom. Father, what are you doing here? Asked Fred. Hello, son, said Friedrich Trump. I've come to get credit where credit's due. I'm responsible for Donald's wonderful propensity to lie. I thought that he possessed innate lying talent. Das ist nicht richtig. I spent 5 years living in Germany, and that's the best I can do. You never knew that when Donald was a child. I materialized and hit his head against one of the columns which adorns your Jamaica Estates house. The impact deactivated his brain's veracity control center. Donald, as a result, does not have the ability ever to tell the truth. Great job, Father. You served our family well. A lot of Donald's success is derived from lying. I look forward to floating above his favorite haunts to watch him lie until the day he joins us. That is definitely not going to happen, stated a fourth ghost who had just appeared in Mueller's bedroom. It's getting crowded in here. Who is this ghost? Inquired Friedrich. John McCain, Mary solemnly answered. Trump's lying days are over. Whenever he lies, I will use ectoplasmic ink to skywrite the truth so it will be visible to the entire country, said McCain. Fred, Mary, Friedrich returned to their respective graves. Not so for McCain, who incessantly haunted Trump. I'm totally exonerated, Trump shouted on Fox News. The following ectoplasmic inked words appeared in the sky directly above the Fox studio. Not so. Trump is not exonerated. And the following voiceover was broadcast simultaneously with the appearance of the next text in the sky. I'm the ghost of John McCain. I paid for this ad. I like presidents who don't get indicted for lying. Luckily, McCain's ghost had an endless supply of ectoplasmic ink. After hearing Stephen K. Bannon say that Trump was going to go full animal in response to Mueller's report, McCain's ghost turned Trump into a dung beetle. The ghost enjoyed watching Trump feed off his own prevaricating bullshit. Trump's first and final term ended after he successfully turned America into a shithole country. Thanks to McCain's ghost, Trump lived out his remaining days in the form of an insect. Fred and Mary were eventually disappointed to learn that their son would not be joining them in the Lutheran All-Faith Cemetery. Instead, when his time came, he was buried in a pet cemetery. The end.
Oh, thank you very much, Marleen. I mean, it's wonderful to listen to your creative stories. And I know I'm in a neighboring country in Canada, so I know we're not, we weren't directly ruled by President Trump there, but he did affect a lot of our politics as well as our neighbor. So
well, you're very lucky that you're not a United States citizen, and you're not from Queens, and you didn't have to have this guilt of being from where he's from.
Well, we get a lot of our news from the US. I mean, I read the New York Times and Washington Post almost daily, so.
Well, but you don't talk with a Queens accent like I do.
I don't.
every time you open your mouth, you don't have the same accent as he does. Although it's interesting, he doesn't speak like a member of my generation. He speaks like a member of the World War II generation.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
He doesn't speak like someone his age would speak.
I guess his parents were a very strong influence, probably, or who knows.
I don't know, but he says things that people his age would never say. It's from the World War II generation. Like no one would say an hombre or a shithole country. Baby boomers don't talk like that.
Well, thank you very much, Marleen, for coming on our show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish you the best of luck in your future projects. And we have a book coming out soon, so on July 4th. And
I hope that everybody enjoys this form of president. Science fiction is retrospective, retro rocket, jettisons Trumpism.
All right. Thank you, Marleen.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Okay, bye.
Are we ending?
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarrard.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there's bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.